rely on marketing more than ever to connect with audiences, one podcast aims to make sense of it all. This is Movies and Marketing.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Go ahead, make my day.
How about news, you crazy Dutch bastard? What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Take a look around. We're at the threshold of hell.
We might as well have a good time.
I am an FBI agent.
So, where to start today? I guess the appropriate place to start is John Travolta's laugh in the Battlefield Earth trailer. Do you remember? It's like a guy acting like a guy who once heard somebody laugh. It's like this.
It's the least maniacal laugh out of maniacal laughs that ever existed, probably.
Yeah. It's like, John, we only got one take. Can you do a maniacal laugh? And he's like, can I do a maniacal laugh? And then he did it and everybody's like, oh no. And then the whole crew's like, no!
The special effects of that movie, you gotta admit, are top notch.
I mean, you can tell where the money went.
Yeah, that's not even John Travolta.
No, that's like Scientology clone of John Travolta, which explains the laugh.
That's how you know the clones that Scientologists create for real actors is by the laugh. That's their weakness, you know.
Yeah, it's the one thing they can't do. They can cry.
Yeah.
But if you try to get them to laugh, it's totally weird. It just doesn't work. It may not be clear right now to the listeners. Do you want to tell them what we're actually talking about today? They might think it's John Travolta. It's not. So don't tune out immediately.
That's the key. Don't tune it out immediately just by thinking you know what today's episode's about. Actually, the title of today's episode, which if you've clicked on this, you already know it's the toughest box office turkeys. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, we're not talking about like actual like people eating turkeys in movies or like Thanksgiving dinner scenes in movies, though that would be maybe interesting but short podcast.
That's right, Chad. Yeah, no, we're talking about movies that crashed and burned the hardest at the box office. And, you know, toughest box office turkeys. If you eat turkey at Thanksgiving and it's tough, not the best, right? You kind of leave feeling a little sad, maybe disappointed, alone.
It's dry. You sit there for a long time just like chewing on it and trying to get it to a point where you can get it down your throat.
Yeah.
You're drinking the water. You're just constantly like working your mouth. You're like, I wanted this good turkey and now I'm just chewing on this dry, tough turkey. It's just the worst experience.
Yeah. That's what today's episode is all about.
Yeah. They were tough for the public to swallow. People didn't want none of that. We'll define a little bit before we start what exactly makes a turkey. You know, how did we come up with the movies we're talking about? Because obviously there's a flop. You know, movies flop at the box office all the time. Those are movies that just come out. They don't make a lot of money. People don't go to see them. That's not necessarily a turkey as we're talking about it today. There's something more to it than that. What we're talking about with the turkey is a movie that loses a lot of money, you know, gets that notoriety as something that is really just a big failure that costs the studio a lot of money. And there's a couple elements that go into that. One of them is usually a really big budget. Not usually, a really big budget, right?
Yeah.
And the bigger the budget, usually the bigger the bomb. So it's really big budget plus really bad box office performance. So if you have a movie that costs, you know, $150 million, $200 million, then it comes out and makes $20 million or $30 million. You know, the bigger the budget and the lower the box office performance, the bigger the turkey size. But it's something, you know, that just has that reputation, that stink attached to it, where people outside of those Hollywood circles are like, oh man, that movie was just a really big bomb. That movie, like nobody went to see that, cost a ton of money, and it was just terrible. Everybody knows that reputation attached to it.
Yeah.
And the other, you know, kind of key element to this is, and I know I didn't always think about this, people don't always think about it, is it's really hard for movies to make money, right? especially when they have these big budgets. And it's not just you're like, oh, that movie costs $150 million, so it needs to make $150 million to break even. Wrong. False. It needs to make a lot more than that. There was an article, a 2020 workandmoney.com article titled The 60 Biggest Movie Flops of All Time by Craig D'Onofrio that I thought summed this up pretty well. And it says, Hollywood studios are notoriously protective of their budgets, and the production budget alone is just one factor. Huge marketing campaigns can sometimes rival the production budget. Additionally, studios only take roughly half of what is earned in theaters domestically, and even less in international markets. And contract stipulations may protect theaters against bombs, which leads to a larger theater cut for movies that underperform at the box office. So a movie needs to make back twice its production costs to break even. So basically what that's saying is, if a movie costs $150 million to make, it needs to make $300 million before it's breaking even and even making any money. So keep that in mind today as we talk about some of these bombs and, we talk about some box office numbers. Whatever that budget was, it needs to make double that to make back what they spent on marketing and what it's actually getting back after the movie theaters get their cut.
That's a big recipe for success or failure, right? I mean, if you spend X amount of money and you don't even make that back, that's not a good return on your investment. It's not always just about the production budget, like you said. The marketing budget is seldom ever included. Those numbers that you usually see in the box office do not reflect any of that. And so that's why sometimes these movies, they come out, they seem like they did pretty well, but then you see the marketing budget behind it and you're like, wow, it's just like business in so many ways.
Yeah. So just some back end stuff to keep in mind there.
Yeah. These turkeys, we're going to pick some, right, Chad?
Yeah, it's fun to talk about these movies. We've got 4 plump turkeys to discuss today, 4 movies that regularly come up when people make these lists of the, biggest box office bombs of all time. So we're going to talk about these movies, and more importantly, we're going to answer the question for each of them, kind of get into the why this movie failed. And for us, for this show, what we do, we're going to answer, was it a movie failure? Or was it a marketing failure? What went into that more? The underperformance or the terrible performance of that movie? Why was it a turkey? Movie or marketing? Was it the content itself, or was it the marketing just didn't quite do its job getting that movie to people? Which I think will be an interesting question to answer for some of these movies. And who knows, maybe we'll have different opinions on that.
And there is the possibility that the movie was such a failure, the marketing really couldn't do anything to help it, right?
Yeah, marketing can only do so much. Well, let's see if it did something for our first movie. What do we have first on the docket, Patrick?
Well, we let in with a little bit of hinting around to this, and that is Battlefield Earth.
When we attacked your planet, all your soldiers and all their advanced technology could only put up a measly 9-minute fight before they were exterminated. Which is why man is an endangered species.
From May 12th of 2000 as the release date, this movie, Shad, had a budget of $73 million, which isn't small. It's not the biggest budget, but it isn't small.
Well, you got to think in $2,000 too. That's 20 years ago. Probably close to double what it was then.
I like when you say things like in $2,000, in $1995.
Inflation.
That is true. We always talk about inflation a lot on the podcast. So domestically, this movie made $21 million. Internationally, it made $8 million, which is very, very sad. If you can't make more internationally than you did domestically, there's a problem. So the total box office number for this movie, $29 million, with the budget of $73 million, no doubt about it. The worst, the driest, the chewiest turkey.
Yeah, and I remember when this movie came out, and it was not moving the needle at all. There was zero interest in this movie. Let's read the plot synopsis here. It's the year 3000 AD, and the Earth is lost to the alien race of Cyclos. Humanity is enslaved by these gold-thirsty tyrants who are unaware that their man animals are about to ignite the rebellion of a lifetime. Amazing synopsis.
I love man animals. Let's just say the movie trailer, it's tough, man. It's tough. It's a short trailer. If you watch the trailer, it's not very good, and it's very indicative of what you're going to get in that movie. I thought it seemed like a good idea to take the movie trailer on YouTube and just look at the comments to give you an idea of how people felt about the marketing of this movie. From Guitar Lessons Bobby Crispy, that's the name of the YouTube profile.
Great name.
Yeah. He says, this movie is in my list of the top 359,000 films of all time. So just, you're going to get a little sense of how people felt about it. NS says, the trailer makes no sense. I guess they were worried that if they showed more scenes that showed what you were in for, nobody would go to see it. Cheesy Bob wrote, you have to give them credit. At least the trailer properly represented the rest of the film. Taking a little dig, a little passive-aggressive stab at the fact this movie is poorly executed, and the trailer represents that. So obviously people weren't all that excited about seeing this. What do you think?
Yeah, I gravitate to that second comment where they're like, I guess they were worried if they showed more scenes that showed what they were in for, nobody would go see it. I kind of got that sense from the trailer. It really seemed like a cover-up job where they were just trying to go fast, give glimpses, and get out of there. Mm-hmm. That was the sense I got from it. The poster, it looks so weird. There's flying Winnebagos on there. You got Travolta with these crazy eyebrows and green eyes that he kind of looks like he's cross-eyed. The Travolta makeup just seems like everything about it just seems all wrong. Where you don't know how somebody didn't look at him and be like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
From day one, it's one of those things boardroom decision. How is somebody not absolutely not? My pick here, I'm going, this is a movie failure. There was just almost no chance for this. The marketing did what they could. They're just trying to cover up. They know there was just not much they can do here. I don't know what the actual selling point would be. Special effects are just bizarre and not very good. So it's not come see the spectacle of it. So I think they did what they could here. But to me, it's can't really put a lipstick on this pig because it's just a total disaster.
Yeah, I agree with you. Movie failure all the way. The marketing, this is where you're trying to polish a turd. And that's unfortunately what you get sometimes. You make the best out of what you got, right? So I get it. I sympathize with whoever had to piece together and make this seem better than it actually was. This movie is no doubt very bad. It's laughable. So that is my positive spin on this, is that I'm a big fan of us sitting around and watching a bad movie just for the laughs. So if you want a movie like that, this movie might foot the bill, right?
Yeah, I feel like it never had a chance.
So the next on our list, Shad, another space movie.
Yeah. So we go from a very serious space epic to a lighter space comedy, 2002's The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
239,000 miles from Earth, in the blackness of space, there is a giant rock called the Moon. And in the year 2087, its future will be in the hands of one man. Eddie Murphy is
Pluto Nash. Pluto Nash.
It is a pleasure to meet me.
the battle between Pretty Evil.
Let's get it right this time.
And Pretty Good.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Look at me.
Begins.
Well, we were thinking a little more bubblage.
Hey!
Oh, yeah.
Eddie Murphy.
A pleasure to meet you, Pluto.
You married twins, huh?
No, they're not twins. I met the perfect woman, and then I had a clone.
Which one's which?
Who cares?
The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
Whoa! Whoa! Why don't you take these Hillarys? We appreciate you helping us out.
Starring Eddie Murphy. The synopsis on this one: in the future, a man struggles to keep his lunar nightclub out of the hands of the mafia. Which is just fantastic.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this movie, but based on that description, I want to now. So it's got that going for it. So yeah, this movie came out in August of 2002. Budget of $100 million. Pretty high for a comedy, but again, it's a space comedy, so there's special effects and stuff. And it's got Eddie Murphy, fairly big star, and he's, playing multiple roles in this movie as he did in a lot of movies at that time. The domestic box office on this, 4.4 million. Actually, so low, had to include the point on this one. International box office, 2.6 million for a grand total of 7 million. So again, they spent 100 million. Remember that, double that to get your break-even point, which is 200 million. This movie made $7 million.
Sub 10 million. That is embarrassing.
Insane.
I honestly think it's probably more of a marketing failure than it is a movie failure. Even if you look at some of the criticisms, even the comments on YouTube about people who have seen the film, a lot of them said the movie's actually not that bad. The marketing, I think, just probably fell flat, or maybe people were maybe tired of Eddie Murphy at that time. His biggest time period was from the 80s through probably the mid 90s, and then it started to trail off a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it got more up and down at that point.
Yeah, and he started into animated films, and there are some successes there and whatever, but I will pull out a quote from YouTube. This profile, Shad, 100 Forks, which I don't know why, but I love that. Some great YouTube profile names.
I hate all my profile names because they're like just my name.
Yeah.
People come up with the best stuff like 100 Forks.
Yeah. 100 Forks wrote, due to the critics' poor ratings, I never watched this movie, but I just bought a copy for 10 cents and figured I would spend the evening viewing a really rotten flick. Kind of like I was talking about with Battlefield Earth. The critics got it totally wrong. I really liked the film. It was funny, action-packed, well-acted, and just totally enjoyable. Two other movies that the critics trashed but were also great are Lightning Jack with Paul Hogan and Cutthroat Island with Gina Davis, which also made it onto our list of movies that we did look at for the toughest box office turkeys, right, Chad?
Yeah, it was on the short list.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a good one. And that's I'm with you on this one. I think it's all marketing. It seems like by the time this was released, it seems like the studio had just given up on it and wanted to write it off. I don't even know. They probably didn't spend much on marketing because it seems like a total give up.
Mm-hmm.
The trailer, which I actually found funny, looked like slapdash put together. I look at the poster with the tagline of "The Man on the Moon," and I'm like, this is garbage. Like somebody just came up with it in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And, they just dropped it off in the end of August, which is like the end of summer release where you dump movies that you don't think anything of. So I don't even think they gave it a chance to make any actual money. To me, it's a total marketing failure. Whether or not this was a great movie, it probably shouldn't have cost $100 million to make, but they could have definitely squeezed more money out of this.
Mm-hmm. Sub 10 million. On a $100 million movie, I feel like there had to be a lot of people who would lose their jobs over that.
You would think so. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'd like to check it out, though. It looks kind of interesting to me.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, it seems like a fun little romp.
Romp? Yeah, I know.
Has become my word of choice for...
It has. That's totally your thing.
Yeah. It's a romp. So the next on our list, Shad, this one. I have seen this movie, and I will say it's a real piece of work. So the next one on our list is Gods of Egypt.
Ages have passed since the gods walked among us. Before the fury swept over our land.
You're not fit to be king. It's my turn now.
Set has taken over Egypt and enslaved its people. Only one God can save us, but not without his eyes.
Steal from a god. Only a madman would try such a thing.
Where do you suppose we could find someone so mad?
Shad, this was released in February of 2016, had a budget of $140 million, domestically did $31 million, and internationally did $119 million. So total box office was $150 million. The budget was $140. So like we said, you've got to try to make at least twice as much as the budget to break even, right?
Yeah, so it's a money loser. It didn't do as bad as like Pluto Nash with its $7 million. It looks a little better on paper than some of the other ones, but definitely falls into that turkey category.
And so the synopsis on this is a mortal hero, Beck, teams with the god Horus in an alliance against Set, the merciless god of darkness, who has usurped Egypt's throne, plunging the once peaceful and prosperous empire into chaos and conflict. It starred Gerard Butler, who we all know from 300.
He's been riding that 300 wave for a long time.
I will say this about the movie. Horrible special effects. Pretty unbearable.
There's a lot going on. I saw this one too. The thing everybody really points out with like the special effects too, the weird thing that you just could not adjust to was there's actual gods in this, and then there's regular people. The gods are, 12 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And the people are like regular people size. So they show them standing next to each other. And it's like a hobbit next to a regular person. You just can never, the perspective throws your brain off in weird ways.
Yeah. Pretty cringy, as my daughter would say. I keep coming back to this had a lot of marketing failure to it because they probably could have got more people in there. It did fairly well in international, and so I want to say it's marketing. What do you think on this one?
I'm on the same lines. I was a little bit torn because the movie's weird. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's weird, but there's enough there. The effects are interesting enough and they've packed it full. I think they could have definitely done more with it. And I think you're right pointing to like, look what the international did, where they got enough out of it. They could have got more out of it domestically. It seems like another one where they just, let's drop it off in February and it does what it does. There's just a lot of things there they could have used creatively that I don't think they played on enough to get people in or weren't trying to.
Yeah.
So to me, yeah, I think it's more marketing than that. They could have got more juice out of this, at least in the US.
Yeah, maybe it was even the name of the movie. We sometimes overlook that when we're talking about some of the fails because we're looking at some of the visuals and things that are happening within the marketing, but it really can be tied back to the actual name of the movie in many cases, right?
You hit on a good point. Titles alone, I think, have a big impact on how some movies do. This one not being the worst, but even looking back on Battlefield Earth, Adventures of Pluto Nash.
Yeah.
Just some of these weird things people cannot connect to. And then, some of the other movies on our short list, like Geely, Ishtar, these things that people just completely cannot connect to the title. I feel like it is just such a hard uphill battle to begin with when you have something like that attached to your movie.
Yeah, I agree. So that was bad. I think we're leaning towards the marketing on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next on our list, Shad, we have Cats. Very, very recent. Might be too soon.
Oh, I don't think so.
Seen you before, have I?
A tribe of cats called the Jellicles must decide yearly which one will ascend to the Heaviside layer and come back to a new Jellicle life. What the did I just say?
You love that.
I know I said words. I don't know what any of them meant.
You, Shad, you're a man of words, and I could tell you right now, you might have written this.
I might have, if it made sense.
Yeah.
And didn't have Jellicle in it.
Yeah. It's not like they just made it up for this movie. It really pulls from the history of the Broadway musical. I'll give them that, right?
It is based on a smash hit, long time running Broadway play. There's that.
Yeah. Very, very recent. December 2019. Domestically, this did 27 million. Internationally, 46 million. So they had a total box office tally of 73 million. Budget was 95 million. So 73 million, budget of 95 million. Didn't do twice as much to like break even like we were talking about. I will say, Shad, this movie being recent, I think everybody could probably remember the criticisms were enormous for this movie. Were they not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember even when the first trailer came out and people were just like, what is that? I mean, just the visuals. Obviously, it's very different. The Broadway play, it's just people dressed up in furry cat suits. This is special effects to make people look like cats, and just one of those uncanny valley things where people were just like, I don't even know how to react to how those people look.
Yeah.
seeing them in like their cat versions, especially like known actors and stuff.
Yeah. So NS Jesty, YouTube profile, who left a comment on this movie trailer and says, Taylor Swift wasn't lying when she said, I'm the actress starring in your bad dreams. X-Man34 said, this went through an animation team, a writing team, a choreographic team, a storyboarding team, the director himself, and none of them thought, yeah, no, this might be horrible. Andrew Paulmark wrote, I took my girlfriend to this movie in theaters. I don't have a girlfriend anymore. So a little bit of that feeling that people had some good humor, right, at the expense of the film and, the talent in it, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that one is rough. Watching that trailer, though, this is a movie I've never seen. The visuals on it, and this is why I call this a total movie problem. And going back to, one of those comments, you look at it and it's one of these things where you're like, it totally doesn't work. I mean, visually, what is happening? I can't mentally make sense of it. Showing these people with these, cat bodies, the size of them, again, we go back to it's just, your brain can't connect. They're like a different size. They're not quite cat size, not quite human size. Mm-hmm. They have their bodies are just like covered in, I guess, digital fur and stuff. Nothing about that clicks or works. I don't know. Haven't seen the actual movie. Maybe it's different when you watch it. Maybe it kind of lulls you into something where you're like eventually stop seeing that or it stops sticking out to you. But watching that trailer, it made me uncomfortable. It made me feel weird. I wanted to, just shave any hair off my body because it's just such an odd visual sight. We can't do this. Let's not release this. Let's can this thing. Let's burn the print. That would have been my reaction if I worked at the studio.
They tried really hard, I think, from a marketing angle to really fix things. I think that they really tried. I mean, I don't want to discount the fact that CGI and special effects today, there are some spectacular things happening.
Yeah, some of the reporting on the visual effects is pretty interesting too. Some of these headlines, what went wrong with Cats? The VFX experts weigh in. The Cats visual effects crew is still recovering from the trauma. Cats VFX artist breaks silence on editing out buttholes. Why the Cats movie looks so terrifying. These are like actual headlines. It's just got that reputation now that I think is going to stick with it, at least in the short term. I don't know. Maybe it'll be different in the long term. Maybe it'll become some sort of cult movie.
Yeah. I think that has that potential anyway, because there's so many fans of the Broadway musical, and they had a lot of original songs that very big artists introduced into this soundtrack. So I think it has the potential of being a cult following long term. 10, 15 years from now, we might look back and go, yeah, we thought that was a real big disappointment, which it was from a box office standpoint.
Yeah, comes down to a movie failure for me. I think it's still at this point a pretty tough turkey.
Yeah, tough turkey. But you will believe, according to the marketing.
They did what they could. The poster's nice. Yeah. Some nice colors on there.
Yeah, nice colors. You'll believe in something. It might be something bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. So those are our 4 top picks. The last part of this episode today, we're going to talk a little bit about one movie from our longer list, which we won't divulge everything that was in the list because that might be a future episode. But we're going to pull out one movie that we want to defend, right, Shad?
Yeah, just one, one turkey, one movie that's classified as one of these major bombs, with a big budget and poor box office that we think deserves a little defense, is not as bad as its reputation makes it out to be.
So I'll start, Shad. I'll give you the synopsis of this movie. Years after a major global conflict has left the United States in dystopian disarray, a nomadic traveler who becomes known as the Postman, played by Kevin Costner, wanders through towns in the Northwest, delivering old mail. Thanks to the postman's presence, people begin to believe that the U.S. government has been restored. During his travels, the postman becomes involved with the lovely Abby, Olivia Williams, and clashes with the dictatorial.
That's a tough one.
This is why the movie failed. The dictatorial General Bethlehem, who is played by Will Patton. So this is The Postman with Kevin Costner.
In the future, after the Great War, our civilization lies in ruin. Government does not exist. Technology has been erased. and everything man remembers is gone. Out of the chaos, a lawless army will arise to prey on the few survivors. But to a people who have lost their hope,
you are a dangerous man. I can see it in your eyes.
he will give them courage.
I have a feeling about you.
He will restore their memories of the past.
It's the individual that counts.
These people don't need dreams. They need help. Are you going to bring them that?
I want him bound. I want him dealt with.
He will unite them
You have a gift, Postman.
with a message of freedom.
I challenge the leadership of the clan! You want a war? I'll give you a war!
Kevin Costner, Academy Award-winning director of Dances with Wolves, brings you an epic new vision of our future.
There are gonna be new laws! There's gonna be peace!
Did almost 21 million worldwide. Budget was 85 million. It was on the turkey list, the tough turkey list. It was released in 1997, in December of 1997. I defend this movie because I did like this movie. I actually really liked this movie. I know that it got a lot of bad criticism in press, and for whatever reason, people didn't like it. I often reference, when I think about The Postman, I also reference Waterworld, which also had Kevin Costner and was released literally 2 years before in July. Totally different premise, but post-apocalyptic. I don't know. It's just a good story. I thought it had good acting in it. I'm defending it. I'm going to pour a little gravy on that tough turkey and see if I can get it to go down.
See if you can get some other people to eat it too.
I think you should eat this turkey this Thanksgiving. I think you should play it. I think it actually plays very well as a Thanksgiving movie too. Gives you hope.
Oh. I have never seen The Postman. I was a big fan of Waterworld, which I remember at the time people talking about it like, oh my God, it's going to be a disaster. Its budget is so huge. And seeing it at the movie theater and being like, Waterworld's a good movie. And I've always liked Costner. My thought is on The Postman, and even hearing you read that summary, is it's one of these movies, like it's a real stretch. There were a ton of these movies, especially at this time in the 90s, where it would be like, insert certain person or job giving people hope.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like a postman in the apocalypse giving people hope. It sounds real dumb. Probably not that dumb in the way it plays out, but the way, they make it sounds pretty stupid. People were probably pretty turned off on that. I could see how that would be like kind of a marketing fail. Even looking at, the poster, some of how it's packaged now, it doesn't look great. The title's not great. I don't know.
Yeah, when you read the synopsis, it does come across as a little silly. It doesn't do justice to the entire storyline, because there is a story arc there that I think is pretty believable with the Postman in a way that you wouldn't normally think, which is kind of why I like it. But I'm going to defend this turkey. I think you guys should check it out.
It's a good one. I might have to check it out. I can't, it's hard to get up much passion to watch it. I don't know, but though you seem to have some for it. I do think they should have gone with what has been reported as the original title of the movie.
Which is what?
Dances with Postage.
I thought you were serious. I was like, I don't know if that...
Yeah.
Dances with Postage might have worked.
Yeah.
You remember Tin Cup?
Maybe.
How about Tin Postman?
There you go. Field of Letters.
Bull Postman.
There's your winner right there.
I like it. Yeah, we could do alternate movie titles all day long, right?
We could, sadly. But instead, we'll get to my defense pick. And mine is, probably I would say Turkey around the same level. So mine is a movie from 2012. So about 8 years ago that most people have probably forgotten. But you can find it now. Streaming on Disney Plus. Give you the synopsis. Transported to Barsoom, a Civil War vet discovers a barren planet seemingly inhabited by 12-foot-tall barbarians. Finding himself prisoner of these creatures, he escapes, only to encounter Woola and a princess in desperate need of a savior. I'm talking, it sounds really interesting. You can also go with the tagline on the poster, Lost in Our World, Found in Another. Emotionally deep.
Yeah.
Talking about the Disney movie John Carter.
Our world is under attack, John Carter.
That don't look like a fair fight.
And Earth is next. Will you stay, fight for us?
Get on.
John Carter fights for us!
John Carter. In theaters and IMAX 3D March 9th.
So this one had a budget of $250 million, made $73 million at the US box office, $211 million international, not bad, for a total of, $284 million. Again, taking into account, got to make back double or close to it. Didn't really approach that. But, widely considered kind of a big flop, especially with that US number not even hitting 100 million. With that huge budget of 250 million. This movie's pretty much wall-to-wall special effects.
Yeah.
So a lot went into it and a lot was expected of it. And it definitely didn't live up to that bar. But I remember watching and thinking, if you don't go in with those expectations, if this was something I would have watched like as an HBO movie as a kid, something I would have caught on an afternoon, I would have probably been pretty entertained by it. It's also like Who's It For movie. It's not quite for adults. It's not quite for kids. If you go in there just expecting something cheesy and fun, it's somewhere in the middle. But if you let yourself just have a good time with it, you probably will.
Yeah, I really agree with you on this one. I think the reason why this movie failed or fell into the category of tough turkeys was because of the marketing. For sure, this is a marketing failure, and I'll tell you why. The movie is actually pretty good, but herein lies the problem. It's made by Disney, and they marketed this movie Disney John Carter. I think that is where they completely messed up. This is at a time where I think Disney was in a transitional period where they're trying to build Disney out to be something more than animated cartoons and films that were like really focused on children. And they were building out their library. And they took the leap before people were ready to accept that Disney was more than just movies that you take your kids to. And it doesn't seem like that long ago, 2012. I remember thinking to myself, that's a really weird way to market this as a Disney movie, because while it does have Disney qualities to it, they shouldn't have put that as the main stamp of the movie. First of all, I don't think John Carter is a great title at all.
No, I agree with that completely. A different title would have helped immensely, but you're right about everything you're saying. It's one of these movies where it's just off in so many ways, right? Mm-hmm. The Disney part, the title, probably the marketing itself just could have been amped up. It also does have that problem, which is what audience would you actually go for with this? Yeah. And I don't think they quite figured that out before they put it out there.
Yeah. The thing is like the synopsis, right? Transported to Barsoom.
What about that as a title?
First of all, the movie takes place on Mars. I mean, it's Mars. Like, why can't they? Yeah. They never say Mars. Maybe it's Mars Civil War, or I don't know, something better. Mm-hmm. And that's where I feel like the synopsis was written by someone at Disney. They're talking about princesses and creatures and the 12-foot barbarians. They just couldn't get out of Disney. It's not a Disney movie.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been way more successful.
It's basically a guy fighting a war on Mars.
Yeah. And it has cool concepts to it, like this idea of him, gravity is
jump.
Yeah, he could jump really far and whatever. So I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you though. Good movie.
Yeah, check it out. It's worth watching. It's a fun romp. You'll have a good time with it.
It's a fun romp. You could pour a little gravy on this tough turkey, and it will be more enjoyable. I'm convinced.
It's like a Thanksgiving double feature, I think. Watch John Carter during the day, and then have your Thanksgiving dinner, eat your turkey, and then at night, get a little serious, watch The Postman.
I think that's a great way to spend Thanksgiving 2020.
It makes sense.
It does make sense. It's actually pretty apropos to this year, right? I mean,
yeah, you're not doing anything. You're not having a get together. Why not just eat a turkey by yourself, watch a couple turkeys, go to sleep.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Totally perfect. So that's it for this episode of Movies and Marketing, everyone. Until next time, let's fade to black.
I'll be back.
He's not coming back.